march has taken over dozens of cities, one of the biggest, Washington, D.C.
The crowd that showed up was so big that at one point organizers weren't even sure if a march was possible. Local 10 News reporter Glenna Milberg is live in Washington, D.C. with the latest on this demonstration. Glenna.
Not only was it possible, it is possible. It was a march at first and sort of morphed into moving masses of people around Washington. The head count, they say, is well over 500,000. We have people walking by saying how invigorated they are. Understand, these are people who came here to talk about women's rights, largely people who feel like they were on the losing end of an election. Being with like-minded people and doing what they did today, they say, gives them hope. The sea of pink and the empowered converge near the spot at the Capitol where President Donald Trump took the oath of the presidency just 24 hours earlier.
And that is our intention, to be totally peaceful today.
The Women's March on Washington drew a staggering crowd in number and diversity. Headliners like feminist icon Gloria Steinem and a 21st century civil rights march.
There were so many marches in the past that all of us have seen on, newsreels. And to make my own news today was a big draw for me.
The signs document residual effects of then-candidate Trump's comments about women's body parts.
It hurt all of us.
Yeah.
We feel like it demeaned us.
But the movement is about issues: equal pay in the workplace, choice and access in healthcare and education.
These issues on your sign are really people's issues, not just women's issues.
That's true, but they impact and affect women as well. And if we can do what it says on the sign, we can help everybody.
Mr. Trump is in a position that he could endorse us as women, equal pay, and say, yes, I agree.
President Trump said he wants to be the president for all people. These are the people he's going to have to do something to convince of that.
These are issues important to women, to our families, to our pocketbooks. I think we've already seen some of the changes, and it hasn't even been 24 hours. So I think it's important to be here, to keep reminding.
You know, this idea actually started as someone's little Facebook post, and it has morphed into a really well-structured organization. 600 of these marches, satellite marches in cities around the world. I'm sure you've seen some of the video in places like Boston and Chicago, Miami, where there are also crowds of people in the streets. They're hoping that this is not just a flash in the pan, that this will be something that formulates and conforms into some kind of movement. In fact, this week in Washington, they're holding these training seminars, hoping that women will come and learn how to be elected to office. I'm Glenna Milberg in Washington, D.C., Local 10 News.
And Glenna, talk a bit about the difference between the feeling today versus some of the feelings yesterday. We know we saw a lot of anti-Trump protests during the inauguration, but this march was really more about the issues.
Exactly right. This was not meant to be an anti-anything movement. This was meant to be a call for women's rights, which are human rights and civil rights in many respects. There are philosophical differences on how to get there, and that's where you see this political divide between Democrats and Republicans. Yesterday, there was an inauguration of a very controversial elected official. When Donald Trump became president, you saw protests against that happening, many peaceful and some violent. This was not meant to be specifically against a person, but a message to a government to achieve these rights that they were talking about.
All right, our Glenna Milberg live for us in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Glenna.
And Hillary Clinton is tweeting words of support to the millions of marchers protesting. She aimed her post to all the little girls watching. Never doubt that you are valuable and powerful and deserving of every chance and opportunity in the world.
And our team coverage moving now to Local 10 News reporter Leanne Morejon live in Miami with a look at the Women's March there. Leanne.
And ladies, good evening. Just like Glenna mentioned, that movement there in Washington, D.C. was largely started due to a Facebook post. Today's rally here in downtown Miami was organized similarly. In fact, you'll hear from one of the organizers in just a moment. Right now, some marchers, some participants continue to show out in the streets, and that is what's going on now, hours after this rally began. Quite the sight in Bayfront Park. The Women's Rally of South Florida brought close to 10,000 people to downtown Miami, one of hundreds of similar events taking place nationwide and across the globe.
It's just beautiful for me to see the diversity and the concern and the love.
I came with my mom to just tell Donald Trump and the country that there's a lot of people who don't believe in what he stands for, and our voices will be heard.
Their message focusing on a variety of human rights.
Women's rights, gay rights, lesbian rights, the rights of dreamers.
Before the thousands of participants took to the streets to march, they heard from a variety of guest speakers, many of them well known around the country.
It's important for us to come together, for women to come together, and we have our girls here from our mentoring program. It's important for them to see that this is how we gather and this is how we as women affect change.
All of us need to shake off the aftermath of the election and commit ourselves to continuing our progress.
The march traveled through the downtown area, taking them at times to highways like I-95 and I-395, with Miami police keeping a close eye every step of the way. For these folks, it's the best way, they say, to make their voices heard.
We're going to hold him accountable for everything that he said during his campaign and what he's going to do from here onward.
And Miami police have been using their Twitter account to keep everyone up to speed on where the protesters are and how it's affecting traffic. Their last post just a few minutes ago said they are back on Biscayne Boulevard and Northeast 2nd Street, and that is having some effect on the traffic in the area. So it's a good idea if you want to know where the protesters are, if that's having any effect on traffic flow, to give @MiamiPD a follow on Twitter. Live in downtown Miami, Leanne Morejon, Local 10 News.
Leanne, thank you.